Hi, everyone. Welcome to Artistic Digitizer Basics and Beyond. Let me get my camera on so we can give a proper hello. And I'll put this on as well. There we go. So welcome, everybody. I'm Ann Hine, Embroidery Software Specialist for Janome America. And today we're talking about fill stitches. So I have a little sample here that shows some of our fill stitches. And I'm just going to do the step fills today. I mean, we have net fill, we have cross stitch, satin fill, applique is considered a fill, row fill. So all of those, I'm going to cover those in separate lessons. I think it would be better. And in my shapes here, I'm showing like the full design. You can see the pattern. And then when it's down at the bottom, and that's where I've changed the density just to see what that would look like. Okay, on there. You can change your density, you can change the underlay on some of these, you can do a whole lot with your fill stitches. One other thing you can do with the fill stitches is you can do gradient and get things like this where you layer it together and you have two colors of that shape, and one is a positive number gradient and one is a negative number, and it makes that kind of colored look to it. And then, of course, within your shapes, you can see my shapes here have a little bit of a bend on the inside. You can use your stitch flow tool with step fill, and it gives you direction, and you can direct those stitches to be straighter across, up or down, whichever way you like them to be, or you can make a little curve. So let me go ahead and put on my software and I'll show you what I mean, and we'll play a little. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to go to create new to start with, and I'm going to use my shapes tool, and I'm going to create just a little egg here, and I'm just going to make it to the center. There we go. Let me bring it down here and make it bigger. All right, so my shape tool is still on, so I'm going to turn it off. The next thing I want to do is I want to break this into sections so I can just show you different shapes right away. So I'm going to do the digitize outline shape. I am in the context tool, so all my left clicks are curves. When I get to the end, I left click, right click. I can select end shape. If I needed a straight line, I would hit shift under the context, and you can change. Typically, the default is the context tool, so you can go into your preferences and change that. You can also get over here, make your left click and hit enter, and it finishes your piece as well. Now, my digitize tool is still active. I'm going to turn it off up here. And then I want to select all of this, and I'm going to right click and knife. It's going to cut the pink one because that was the last thing I did. And then if I do knife again, it's going to cut the top one. And what it's done is made 3 different sections here. I could pull them apart or leave them together. Now, right now I do have an outline. If I don't want the outline, I can come down here to my used colors and we can go do away with outline. So if I do this, select by color and delete. Oops, wait a minute, I must have had the blue in there too. Went the wrong way. Over here, select by color and click the red. There we go. So now you can see without any outlines. So if you select one of these, and I'm just going to change the color because some of the stitches show up better in these lighter colors. I'm going to go to properties, and here's our fill, and you can see all the other fills that we have. But I want to talk about step fill, and you can use stitches in them or patterns. So we're going to look at the patterns, and maybe that first one I want to put the sweater look in there. So there you go, and I'll go in a little early so you can see it. You have total control over here. You can change everything, even what I talked about with the underlay and also the gradient over there. And I'm going to show you something with gradient in a bit. In the middle section, I think I'm going to go with a pink color like that. And I'll go back to my properties, look at patterns, and maybe I'll find something down here. This one looks quite, I was looking for something more like little hearts or something, or little egg shapes. Let's see what this does. Oh, there we go. That's kind of cool. So you have that. And then at the very bottom, I'll pick another one. And maybe I'll pick a blue color here. There we go. I think that'll be a good one. And back to our properties, we'll pick another step fill. Let's see, maybe this one here like that. Now, one of the things is these all look pretty good um, with their shapes in them, with their patterns. This one here, it looks a little weak, but one of the things you can do, and I don't know if this will change, it makes a difference with some of them. You can click on stitch flow, you get direction, and you can draw a little line and change the direction of those stitches. So when it's going in this direction, it looks a little more full, and I can move it along like that, and you can see it gives it a different type there, and I could maybe move it like right there. So you can do that, or you can take your cursor and goes edge to edge if you like. Same thing, okay? So you could do that with any of these or leave them as they are. Now this one here, maybe this one needs a little bit of something. Let's see what happens when I go in this direction. I don't really like that direction. That's not bad. Let's see if I turn it this way. There we go. I like them when they're going up and down like that. The other thing you can do is you can bend. Let's see if I put it down here as well. You can bend your stitches, and this one actually is going to have to go this way. There we go. You can put your cursor right on here. See, it's a little dot, and I can left click and drag just a little bit to bend that line, and it bends my stitches. Now, it doesn't look good with this one, or it could be just where I have it. Let's put it in the center. And if I bend it just a little bit, and it doesn't, you can bend it like off to the edge like that. And that's not great, so I can bring it back in. There we go. I like that. See how it changed that stitch? With that, let me go to, so you have some options here with using your stitch flow tool with that. Now, if you are going to use satin, you get more tools. If you use a row fill, you get a few more tools with that. And we'll use those other ones as we go along, but not in today's lesson. So this is really fun as we come, we're coming up into the Easter season. It would be great to do things like that. So you can create shapes and fill them in and use different patterns and manipulate those patterns. You can also do things like this. I'm going to go to a new page. Maybe you have let me look here. Maybe you have something that's pre-made and you want to use that. I'm going to go back out here and find my folder. Here we go, March. And we are looking at, oh, yeah. Is it this one? For some reason, okay, wait a minute. We're going to go back. I don't think here we are. And we're missing a few. Let me go back and look why these aren't showing up. Oh, I know why. Let me go into embroidery. There they are. All right, and I can go into March. All right, so I'm going to open up March 20. And then you can take, these are SVGs. So I could grab an SVG and drag it over here and open it. Now, I love the browse feature, but I'm finding this very handy instead of going to the browse feature. And then when you open these up, they do have, this is an SVG from Daily Art Hub, and it does have its background. So if I don't want that background, down here, I can click on this. I can right click on this and say select color, and it's selecting all of it. So let me go ahead and ungroup it. There we go. And see if it'll select just part of it. Select by color. And then I can just hit the X to delete that. And select, I don't know if there must be a little bit more in there. So let me go here, select by color. And maybe it's underneath there. And I'm going to delete. Oh, there we go. I think it's underneath. I see. There's a little tiny bit like right here. We'll delete that. And there might be one up here. Do you see that little part? All right, so I deleted those. Now, this is an SVG, so it's like clip art. So in this clip art, I can now manipulate the things in here. So remember I mentioned about gradient. Now, these don't overlap each other. So you can't really do, gradient is really for overlapping. I could do gradient. I'm going to show you gradient in a little bit other lesson, but if I came in here and I picked a step pattern, I tend to like that. There we go. That one looks nice. Now, sometimes when you get a step pattern, we'll see it when we do these, as it goes around, it changes the pattern a little bit. Now, this is just where it's going to change direction. And sometimes if you use your stitch flow, you can make a little change in that. And that's not really the right one. So I can play with this just a little bit to maneuver that connection. There we go. It's a little bit better. Maybe over here it needs a little bit, so we might have to play with a little more. But you can get that connection to be showing a little bit less. And when you stitch it out, it should not show, but sometimes it makes us aware of other things. Now, if I picked these outer ones and I went in here and I'm going to pick this one because I think, see how it looks on that edge? And if I go over here and I pick the same one, you can see it looks better in different directions on my flower. So I'm going to go all around, and I could have selected all of them and then selected that, but I'm going to do them just one at a time. There we go. I could do them all different. So here, this one isn't showing well. I can see the stitches look good in this direction. So maybe I need to go to stitch flow and make them go in this direction and see if I get a little bit better option with that. They do look a little bit better. This one here needs a little bit of work. Let's see, stitch flow. Let's make it go here like that. That's a little bit better. Maybe if I turned it around, there we go. I kind of like that. But you can go through all of your pieces and make them, change the direction so they are the way that you want them. Okay. Now for the center part, if I move this out of the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one out too, I think. Oh, well, maybe I'll leave it there. There we go. If I wanted to do gradient on this circle here, what I could do is I'm going to change the gradient to 500. And then I'm going to copy paste. I'm going to pick another color. Let's say like maybe this yellow, fill. And I'm going to make that gradient minus 500. Now you can go anywhere within the 500. So you can go minus 500, minus 400, and so forth. So if you change it, so this is the minus 5, the yellow part. If I wanted to do maybe minus 300, you can see the different changes. So that's gradient. And I really like to work with gradient. It's a lot of fun. It gives you some blended colors. So you have a lot of options with that. So you can work with your gradient. So this is working with a clip art design. But what if you were working with a pre-made design, right? So I'm going to open my Finder again. Now, if you're on a PC, you can open your File Explorer and do the same thing I'm doing by clicking and dragging. Okay, you don't have to, you have that option as well. Now, over here, I have some draw file. Let me see if I have, these are all draw files. Let me see. And so these are, let me move this. This flower here, it is a draw file, so it's not a Jeff file yet. But let me see what it looks like here when I open it and I select a part of it. Right, so it still is, it came in as a draw file, probably because I didn't change it to Jeff. The default was draw, so it came in as a draw. It's not really a draw because when you look at it here, there's convert to curves. So let me move it down in our hoop somewhere so we can play with it better. Well, come on, are you all going to come together? I may have to regroup it. There we go. Now bring it down here. And it's very large. Let me make it a little smaller. So with this one, I converted all, well, I have to convert it to actually work with it. So I can select one part and this outer part, and I can just convert that part. I don't have to convert everything. So if I select convert to curves, and then in my properties, the inside part of that is a step fill. I could make it a satin if I wanted it to be a satin. I could go back to the satin. But with the step fill, I could come in here and maybe play with one of these patterns, maybe that one, and make it really interesting. So that gives me an option. So one of the things with convert to curves, you don't have to change your whole, you don't have to convert the whole thing because it changes it back to its very basic, it'll change it back to basic step fill and a running stitch and so forth. So sometimes you don't want all of it changed. I just want to change that outer part and maybe, you know, this inner star here, I might want to work with that. And I can convert that and see it makes it all a step from that light colored. And I could come in here in my properties and I could apply a step fill to it. But what if I wanted, I'm going to briefly, well, no, I'm going to look for another one of these. So you can work with different, there, that one doesn't look too bad. Or maybe this one here. And then you could play a little bit with your stitch flow to get that design to show a little bit better. So let's make it, we'll work it around and see which way is the best way for that to show up. And sometimes they, you know, they elude you. They're just not going, they don't work well in this shape. So maybe that's not the shape, you know, that's not the pattern for you. This chest one is kind of nice. Some of these ones in a design like this would be good with a more overall piece that just gives a little bit of texture. See how that texture went away? And of course, oh, there, now it has texture all over. Of course, I can bend this one if I want. I don't think it's a good one to bend, but I'm going to bend it a little bit anyways, just to show you. Well, that's interesting. But then it kind of did this little funky thing there. So I can try to bring it back just a little bit. There we go. So it just has a little bit of sweeping to it. So that's using your convert to curves, using a step fill pattern, and also stitch flow. So those are things to remember when you're working with your items. All right, let me show you one more. I'm going to go to a new page, and I have a design. I'm pretty sure I have a Jeff file, so another design I wanted to bring in to show you. But oh, that's my button cover. I think it's this one. So you'll recognize this. This is in our CM17. So, and it was labeled a draw file, and it is not a draw file, I know, because when I select this, which is just this part here, I would have to convert it. So if you're working with Jeff files, that's exactly what you would do. You'd select different parts, convert them, and then you can manipulate the stitches in those. All right, that's how that would all work. And I could find one out here. Let me see if I, let's see. This is a Jeff file here, but this is complicated. So let's see if I have this one. See, it is a Jeff file here, and that's a CMX. I'm going to see if I can find another one. Not that one. Yeah, I don't really have. Well, this Americana is one. Let me open this. This is very complicated. This has a lot of stuff in it. So on this one, you know, maybe you wanted to change that, you know, a section of this, that white part that's under there. You can convert just that section. You could come into your patterns and give it a pattern to make it, you know, more something in there. So don't be afraid to manipulate those Jeff files. You don't have to convert the whole thing. And that's what I wanted to let you know. You don't have to convert all of it. You can just convert a section at a time. All right, so let me go back here. I'm going to go to the camera for a moment and just recap a few things. There we go. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is experiment a little bit with using your step fills, the patterns under step fill. And then you can move into using the row fill or the stitch fill. I'm going to go back and show you a little bit under step fill with a stitch to show you how that fills so you can see that. But make sure you branch out a little bit. Everything doesn't have to be a flat step fill. And if you get a design that's a Jeff file or some embroidery file, and it does have a very blank step design to it, you can go ahead and select that, convert it, and then add a pattern to it. It adds a lot of interest to what you're stitching. So let me go back. I'm going to look at, let me see. I'm going to look at using the, with a design, we're going to use the pattern step fill, but we're going to use a stitch, and I'm going to show you how that looks a little bit. That takes a little bit more manipulating. So under stitches, you know, when you pick these, it will fill it in like that. So that's pretty good. That looks nice. And then from here, you can change the density, the length of your stitch, any underlay, the gradient. So if I changed my gradient to 300, it's going, what gradient does is it makes one side darker and closer together in density and one apart. So on this one, this is kind of cool. And this is stitch 02 in my egg. I'm going to leave that one there, and I'm going to select it and copy paste. I'm going to change the gradient to -300. Let's see. So it goes the other way. And then I'm going to change the color of that to purple. There we go. There we go. So isn't that interesting how that comes out? Now I wonder if I changed my, let's select it, if I made this -250, if it would make it more even. And then let me see here. I think I have to go back out. Can I get just that one? There's the blue one, or maybe the red one. Oh, they're both 250. So let's make the blue one a positive 250. There we go. So you can make your pieces closer together. Again, if you wanted to use, now the stitch flow, you can use stitch flow on either one. I have the blue selected, so my blue is going to be the one that bends a little bit if I bend it. And it's, some of these you have to really don't want to bend. Let me undo this. You can try maybe bending over here and just, yeah, it kind of takes it away. So you have to play with these a little bit to figure out, you know, the best. Ooh, I like, look how that moved it around. It made it a plaid because it changed the direction of my blue stitches. So now they're going across. Let me move this over here. They're going kind of across. That's really, I really like that. It's amazing sometimes when you're just kind of fiddling around how you find interesting things. So there I bent it a little bit, but it's coming outside of my shape. Maybe I just bend it a little less, or just delete it and put those straight across here again, because I like the way that looks. Kind of interesting with that part of it. If I went to the red and I made the red go straight apart this way. Oh, I got to make the red go this way. Sorry, my direction finder is off. There we go. Make more of a plaid. So it would have more solid on one side than the other because our gradient is 250. So, you know, we could try 300, and we could put this one at 300 to see what we get. So your look changes. Isn't that kind of fun? So don't be afraid to play with the stitches. You can change the length of your stitches as well. Let's look at the blue one. If I made this, I don't know, 4.0 mm, they got a little bit bigger. Maybe I want them to go even bigger. So I can, let's try an 8.0 mm. There we go. So there's less of them because they're a lot bigger. And then you can change your density. So if you didn't like that, you know, go back down to your 3.5 mm and see what you have. So you can play around with the effects of the stitches that way. Okay, let me go back to the camera. So this gives you a little something to play with. with your gradient, you can get these kind of fills. I showed that at the end there, or you can use your step fill patterns. You can even use patterns with this too, and stitches under step fill. So branch out a little bit, try some different things. You can just create. I know there was someone who posted recently to our Janome Artistic Digitizer page, and she just took like sort of like blotches of color, and she changed different ones to different patterns and different fills so she could add a little bit of dimension to it. It was very, very interesting. It doesn't have to be that perfect flower. You might want that, but you could be a little artsy and a little fun with it too. You could make, a whole big embroidered piece to stitch on the front, when you're doing it in the hoop zipper pouch. Or maybe you're going to do a big one and put it on the back of your jacket to add a little dimension. At one time, I did a quilt, well, actually some quilt blocks, and they went to the Houston Quilt Show, and they were put in quilts for when they were doing the thing with the space shuttle, and we had the astronaut there. We could bring in our blocks. So I took fabric and I made different patterns on there with the stitches using my gradient and other tools. And once I got my fabrics, they had to be red, white, and blue. Once I had my fabrics done, I cut them into like an Ohio star and sewed them back together. So my fabric was plain to start with, but it had texture on it. And you can do that with a tone on tone, or you can do, a red fabric with white on it or anything like that. So you can really, work this into your quilting if you wanted to. You can work it into clothing that you're making, embroider up your own fabric in different ways. So now I'm thinking of this, I've got a lot of ideas going on in my head as I usually do. So hopefully that'll get you busy. Please post your creations to our Janome Artistic Digitizer Facebook page so we can see what you're doing with our fill patterns and our fill stitches. I'll come back and show you some more with row fill and satin fill, because those are different as well, and there's other tools you can play with. So anyways, thank you for joining me today. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.